Afternoon. Hi, thank you very much for having me. I know it's difficult to listen to anybody when you're eating, so I'll be patient. I'm glad that you got your food. Thank you very much for having me. It's really my pleasure to be here to chat with you. I love your sign, for developers, by developers. So you may not know, and I know like a lot of you are business people and you like to do different things with startups, but I started off as an artist, but I learned how to code, and I've always been both a developer and a designer through my whole career. So it's been a lot of fun for me, but it's great. I love being able to talk to developers, people doing startups. You're the most passionate people. You're going out and creating new businesses, entirely new markets. So what I would like to do today is tell you a little bit about what's happening with Microsoft, but also about my background. That I can maybe share a little bit of my experience and my observations with you. But I would much rather have a conversation. So if you guys want to chat, if we could just ask a lot of questions. I would love to just sort of answer what's on your mind. Okay, sound good? Yeah. Okay, it's like, and just eat. Like, don't worry about it. I'll be fine. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say is I may not look that old, but I'm really old. Really, really old. I've been doing high tech since when the Macintosh came out. You remember like the original Macintosh, like the little one? Back in 1984. That was a very long time ago. So I was in college in the States, and the Macintosh came out, and I saw Mac Paint. I don't know if you guys have ever even seen the program called Mac Paint. It was a painting program. I fell in love with Mac Paint because I was able to use a computer to do something I didn't think was possible at that time, which was just to paint digital imagery. It was such a simple little program, but it totally changed my life. So I think a lot like the stuff that you're doing has that same potential. It may be something that people don't get right away, or maybe it's a little bit out. But if you keep working at it, you all have the potential to do something that will change individual people's lives and also maybe even change industries. So that's why it's really great for me to be here with you, because I see you as the most exciting people to talk to, right? So along the way, along my 30 years, I've observed a lot of things. So I've been an entrepreneur. I've been in startups. I've been in very large companies. I've also helped companies get started. And so I've seen a lot of things. I just wanted to share a few things if that's okay with you. Just like, I don't know, because you guys are all either doing your own startups or somehow involved in the startup culture, right? So this is what I learned. You'll think this is funny, like, Americans get all of our advice from fortune cookies, right? But for me, as a designer and as a creative person, someone who's always like trying to do something new and interesting and different and try to improve, this is actually the best advice that I could give anybody ever about anything, whether it's design or business, or sales. It doesn't matter. People, they make things very complicated without trying too hard. You have to try really hard to keep things simple. And when I mean simple, I don't mean that it's not complex. There's a difference, right? Big difference between complexity, getting simplified down, and something that's complex becoming easier to deal with. So just sort of keep this in mind in whatever you happen to be doing. When you're approaching a problem of any kind, whether it's a business model, it's a coding problem, it's a design problem, trying to get to the heart, right? You should try to be great at one thing for each project, not more than one. Just try to be great at one really great thing, and that's really the best advice that I've had, and I've tried to live by that in my design career. So another thing that I've found for me is that all of you, do most of you consider yourselves entrepreneurs, startups? Like, more or less, right? You're in the startup ecosystem in some way, right? So I found that, at least in Silicon Valley, right, in the United States, all entrepreneurs, and I think it's the same around the world, they all have the same gene, which is being very stubborn. I would also, when I was making this slide deck, I actually wrote down stupid. Because I think like sometimes like entrepreneurs are they're so single-minded they ignore what's happening around them. But the fact is, you have to be that single-minded, right? You have to be that dedicated to what you're doing to be able to persevere, because you're against a lot of odds, right? People may not get what you're doing, but if you just keep working at it and keep your vision and see it through to the end, it may actually fail, but that's okay, because you're going to learn a lot by doing that. So my observation is that all entrepreneurs really have this fantastic ability to focus and keep going through adversity and changes. And so that's what you sort of have to remember. So don't listen to anybody who says that you can't do what you're doing, right? They don't know what they're talking about, right? You know what you're talking about. And by the way, if I'm going too fast, let me know. I just want to get through this because I wanted to get to the part where I get to talk to you. I work for Microsoft in a place called the Garage. And the Garage is really about Microsoft changing Microsoft's a huge company. It's over 100,000 employees worldwide. And we, just in the last couple of years, we got a new CEO, Satya Nadella, and he's trying to help us change our corporate culture. And one of the things that the Garage, my very small team, is helping this very large company do is think differently about how we work, how we approach problems. And the first thing that we do in the Garage is tell people, just start doing stuff. Don't talk about it. Don't do a whole bunch of planning. Don't try to get everything right before you start something. Just do it. Just start. That's like developers, right? Developers do this all the time. They just start writing code. Don't really think too much about what they're doing. Oh, they'll figure it out, right? When they get a little bit further. Just start, right? Just start doing things. Our motto in the Garage is doers, not talkers, right? Doers. People who like to actually create things. So as entrepreneurs, as people in startup culture, your first job is just to keep doing, right? Just keep making. Don't think too much about it. There was a big stigma for a long time about failing. And I can tell you firsthand at large companies, all around the world, it doesn't really matter, or small companies, or even universities, nobody wants to fail, right? Nobody sets out to do something to fail. But the fact is you learn so much more sometimes by going through that process that you shouldn't worry. You shouldn't worry about something not working out. As a matter of fact, when we work in our small teams in the Garage, we actually encourage people to just sort of iterate, and if it doesn't work out, that's fine. Get up, just try something else, go in a different direction, pivot over here. We really need people to just keep trying different things, and don't be afraid if something doesn't work out, because you're going to learn something from that, guaranteed. Right? Guaranteed that you will definitely learn something by something not quite working out right. And the flip side of that is some of you, I bet, have been quite successful already in your startup career. Right? You've actually achieved some things. You may have had a hit in the marketplace. People may be paying attention to what you're doing. You may be financially successful. And you'll wake up one day and it'll seem kind of easy. I know it's kind of hard to believe, right? But I'm telling you, someday you're going to wake up and it's going to feel a little bit easy. And when that happens, it's time for you to reboot. It's time for you to start over again. Just pick something new, right? Go in a different direction. But don't go to work. Don't go collaborate with your teammates. Don't go, to wherever you're going to actually get your work done. Don't go there being comfortable, because that's not ever good for a startup or an entrepreneur to be comfortable, right? Never, never, never. So if you are successful, then and also, and I can tell you this, I've been quite bold in my career. I've done a lot of things that were questionable, stupid, but the fact is you have to, right? I mean, life is relatively short. You get a few chances to do something great sometimes, and you have to take them. Right? You can't be afraid to just try, to just go out there, do something that maybe people are going to tell you is not right, it's not the right time, it's not the right place, but be bold. That's one of the things I've observed about very successful entrepreneurs, is that they're bold, right? They go off and do things that people think maybe can't be done. A lot of people, I think, start businesses, or they think they want to start a business because they want to become rich. I mean, let's be honest, there's nothing wrong with being rich, but the fact is you shouldn't do that, right? You shouldn't start your business for the money. You should start it because it comes from your heart, right? Because you can't even think of a world where you're not doing what you're doing. So it's that kind of passion that entrepreneurs and startups really need to have, right? You have to be doing it because you love it. If you're doing it because you're just trying to make a successful startup and you just want to make some money to do this and that, you may succeed, but you'll be much more happy and successful if it comes from your heart, if it's your passion. And so again, that's what we try to do at Microsoft with the Garage and other programs. We try to help people sort of foster what they care about, right? What's most important to them. Might have nothing to do with their day job, right? It may have to do more with, they just see a need. There's a lot of tech for good startups, right? People helping the community, people helping schools, right? It doesn't have to be about the next great mobile device, right? It could be about helping the community, right? Just the people who are out there. So think about that, right? Don't just do it for the money. We sort of talked about that. And I love talking to people. So I get a chance to mentor people and sort of coach people who are doing different types of businesses. And I always tell them some people are actually much bigger than they realize, meaning they have talent, they have capabilities, they have a lot of things going for them that they don't really understand that's inside them. And so I would just say to you again, you can do anything that you decide that you want to do, right? Nobody can tell you that you can or can't do something. It's what you decide to do, right? So you are all bigger than maybe you think you are. And that will help you as an entrepreneur, right? And again, as I said, you guys are the engine, right? You're fueling all this change that's happening right now. Okay, so that was my pep talk for you guys. All right, you ready to go back to work? Finish your sandwiches, just take off, go back to work? Okay. Do you want to hear a little bit about where I came from? Is that interesting to you? Okay, so a long story short, so I've been doing software for 30 years now professionally, software, hardware, all kinds of different combinations. I actually was an artist. When I was a little kid, and I was in school, I thought I was going to go to art school. I actually did go to college to study art. And what happened was, this is way back, back in the dinosaur era. No, really, because when I went to college, they were using punch cards. Do you guys even know what punch cards are? No, you don't know what punch. Okay, it's way back when, in the old days, computers were run by stacks of cards. You would type a bunch of stuff in on these cards. You would feed the cards into a computer in a mainframe, and a program would come out the other end. I was sounds ridiculous, but that's what it was. So back then, I actually thought that maybe it would be better for me if I could learn about business and computers, and then somehow I could use my art to sort of combine them together. So through my career, I've had the great advantage of both being able to be creative, designer, artist, and also be a coder, right, developer, and be able to sort of merge both together. So I've done a lot of different kinds of projects. And so again, you guys stop me and you can ask me questions at any point. I'm just going to keep blabbling because there's a lot of things I can talk about. But that duality that I have, I think that maybe you could benefit from. One thing I noticed, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were chatting about what it takes to be successful in today's business world. And I think you actually need not to be great at one thing, you need to be great at two things, right? So it's not good, because the world of work is changing, right? And people, I think, need to have at least two interesting skills to be valuable to startup teams, to larger teams, maybe in corporations. So just think about that. You all have a primary thing that you do for your team, but is there something else that maybe, right? So do you want me to start over? Okay, sorry about that. There is probably something else that you can also bring to your team. So think about that. So for me, it was being both an artist, engineer, designer, coder, entrepreneur, and corporate man. So I've done both, right? I've been in startups. I've started my own companies. I've failed in different things I've done. I've been working for Adobe. You all know Adobe system like Photoshop, Illustrator. I worked for Adobe, worked for Microsoft. So I've done a lot of different things, and that's why now I'm very opinionated. I have a lot of observations for the different things I've done, but it's sort of helped me grow as a designer, as a coder, as a person who helps other startups. And I definitely love to coach and mentor and help other teams move along and try to get to their best ideas. So for me, that's a great source of satisfaction, is that I can actually help somebody, coach them along to where they want to get to. So you guys didn't believe me. I know you didn't believe me when I said I was really old, so I'm going to show you. So see how far we can get here. Okay. I'm just going to go through this really quick because I want to get to the good part. So as a designer, this may help you a little bit to understand what I do maybe during my job. So designers in a lot of companies, whether it's a tiny company or a very large company, are responsible for a lot of different things. So there's ideation, thinking up ideas, thinking crazy stuff, drawing on whiteboards. We also have the production artwork. So when you're actually getting ready to push something out to the web, or you're actually designing a prototype, you have to do the actual small detail work. I do storyboarding kind of stuff, drawing very quick storyboards. Storytelling is a very important part of designing. And so that's something that I would also sort of urge you guys to do, is whenever you're thinking about ideas, you're thinking about how to move your product or service forward, think about the story and actually draw it out or act it out. Because it's really revealing when you actually start, you just do it in keyframes, like first frame, second frame. I'll show you an example when we get to that part. And also like code prototyping is super useful for me. These are a couple of the companies I work for that I mentioned, Microsoft, Adobe, so forth. So way back, this is what I told you, like way back, in the dark ages, on that little Macintosh computer, I fell in love with that computer. It was the greatest thing in the world. It's probably like maybe the first time you guys saw an iPhone, you're like, oh my God, there's an iPhone. Like, why didn't anybody ever think of this? It was the same idea with that little Macintosh, except it was so far. I also had the very good fortune of being on a super small team that invented Adobe Acrobat. So that's probably, as far as my greatest business accomplishments, inventing Acrobat is probably right up there, because it helped to transform an entire industry, right? Before Acrobat came along, people really couldn't exchange documents. It's even hard to imagine this, but there was a time when if I had a Macintosh and you had a PC or a different computer, I could not create a document in Microsoft Word and send it to you and have it look right. And so that's what Adobe Acrobat solved, is that problem of electronic document interchange. And then finally, I've been at Microsoft for 15 years now. I've shipped a lot of different products, but I've worked in search, I've worked in Office, I've worked in Windows, I've worked in mobile, I've worked in 3D, I've worked in the data center. So I can tell you, if you guys are interested, I can tell you lots of things about the different aspects of Microsoft. But the company, again, is a very, very different feeling and a very exciting place to be. So I like to do talks, like these talks with you, because I get to share a lot. And so this was so people might ask you, hey, Mike, what's the greatest thing that you ever designed? And the funniest thing is, it's the very first thing. The very first thing I ever designed, I think, was the best thing, which is this menu. And again, like you guys don't know this, but way back when, font menus were drawn all in the same font, in the Chicago font. And so you couldn't tell what the font looked like until you actually changed it. It was like really stupid, but they had to do it that way. So I actually invented that and shipped it and built a whole company around this product called Menu Fonts. And I ran that company for 5 years with a friend of mine, and it was very, very fun. I did everything. Helped design the software, code the software, swept the floors, stuffed the boxes, made the coffee. Did everything I could possibly do in a software company. And for me, coming out of college to start a software company at the beginning of the Macintosh, people didn't even know they needed computers. Like really, they thought computers were just something that I don't know, rich people needed maybe. But I was off there, out in the frontier, trying to figure out how to make a company successful, and that taught me so much that I always have that very fondness, for people trying to do things that are against the odds, because it's fun. Right? It's hard, but it's fun. So just really quick, worked on a bunch of typographic applications way back when, worked on like some 3D stuff, worked on Acrobat. That's what Acrobat used to look like back when it first came out. It's on a PC a long time ago. One of the most innovative things, people don't really realize this, but Adobe Acrobat is the only program I can think of where you can have different size page document, like within the same document, you can have different size pages. It's like very odd. But it's true. And so I worked on Photoshop plugins and 3D animation software and like very futuristic information design pieces. Worked on the very early web services way back when. This actually has still not been replicated. This is Business Intelligence from 1999. It's like very immersive web app that I did. Worked in 3D quite a bit. I did a bunch of storyboards that I talked about. That's really what I want to get to. And also, when I started at Microsoft, we were doing this kind of mobile. And again, for most people, you don't probably remember, but that's what mobile looked like, right? There was no graphics. There was nothing. There was no pictures. There was no video. There was just text. But it was fun to figure out how to do that. I do like to draw on paper. So I'm kind of old-fashioned that way. And so, I love drawing on Surface tablets and iPads and everything like that. But I also really enjoy drawing on paper more, because I think you can go faster. And so if you're prototyping, like you're trying to get stuff done, drawing on paper is really going to be your best friend, and it will get you more output quicker. This is a program I designed, sort of like a home companion. And I actually designed the search feature in Outlook way back when. So if you've ever noticed that Microsoft Outlook works that way, some interesting design stuff. But what I really want to show you, I'm just going to sort of buzz along here and show you this interesting storyboard, because I think you guys will really enjoy that. Let's see if we can find it. Actually, okay, here's another like kind of a silly thing. So I designed these icons for Windows, right? And it was one of those things where you do it and you move on. And again, like you do things, you keep moving, like just keep going fast. Didn't really think about it too hard, but they're a permanent part of Windows. So it's like kind of fun to just, when you start using Windows, you see stuff that you've designed. Okay, so let me see if we can get this to draw. Maybe it's not there. Oh, I guess I don't have that. But there was a great storyboard there. This is a little. Let's see if I can get this video to play for you. Using video, doing things with video very quickly is also a great way to prototype. So this is just to get an idea across. So this is the idea that at Microsoft we had a lot of different things going on at one time. And we needed to sort of reduce, our brand footprint. We needed to reduce the amount of things that we were dealing with at one time. And so this is just, this was done as a designer to try to get a concept across. And so maybe you would also find this useful, this technique, to just do short videos to try to get your best ideas across. Because sometimes, talking to somebody or doing like a PowerPoint presentation, it's really not going to do it. Video, much more effective. So that was a lot of fun to do that. All right. So let's get to the good part, which is the garage. So the garage is really helping Microsoft try to change the way people work every day. And we're not doing it by ourselves. Like there's a lot of movement. We care a lot about how startups are working. So Microsoft has been trying to look at how all the startups around us, in different parts of the world are doing their business. It's like people use Agile. They're going much faster. They're just like releasing stuff and fixing it. They're not getting stuff perfect and then putting it out. They're just like putting it out and fixing it, right? And so we've been trying to use that same mentality. And what we do in the garage, so the garage is a community of people around the world and also a set of places. You guys have heard of like makers, like maker spaces and accelerators like we have here. So we have a bunch of spaces like this where we really try to encourage employees to work on whatever they're passionate about. It doesn't have to be the same thing that they work on during the day, right? It could be anything. So I walk into the makerspace all the time, and there's people doing all kinds of crazy little projects that have nothing to do with work. But that's great, because we think that if you come in and you are creative and you like working, you're going to do something that you're going to take back to your job. You're going to have a skill or an experience or a thought that maybe you didn't have before, and you'll bring that back to your team. And somehow your work on the team will be better for that. And so that's why Microsoft is very supportive. Like Satya, our CEO, loves the garage. He comes in on a regular basis to do different things. And we are just trying to encourage people to just go do stuff, right? Don't talk, don't plan, don't spend endless hours, trying to discuss things. Just go off and do it. And so the garage has really been that way for us to sort of get that across to people. And so this is an example of one of our maker spaces. And you can see like we have laser cutters and CNC machines where you can make like 3D objects and all that. But it's really not even that. It's more that people can go learn. They can go experiment. You don't have to be an expert at any of this stuff. You can just come in and there'll be people there. Like guaranteed there'll be somebody there to help you through all this stuff. This is also another part of the garage space outside of Seattle where I work, in Redmond, Washington. And you can see there's like a bunch of 3D printers. There's a sewing machine, right? And you think, oh, what's a sewing machine doing in the garage? Wearables, as you know, right? The wearables market is super interesting for a lot of different reasons. And so people are experimenting, right, with conductive thread, with being able to sew electronics and LEDs and different things into clothing. And so we're starting to help people like branch out and be able to do that. And of course, like any place, the garage is messy, right? And people like leave little notes telling us what's wrong with our 3D printers. Like they're not always working right. We host a lot of high school students and college students come through, and they do these great little projects. Like we have these hackathons. You guys know what hackathons are, right? Okay. So hackathons are a lot of fun because you just get a group of people together for like 2 days or 1 day, however much time you have, to just build a working prototype, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but you get your point across. You prove whether something could be done quickly or not. And that's also sort of part of what we're trying to do differently, is we're trying to help people be able to achieve, getting a service together, like standing up something in Azure, or being able to like get something built on Office 365, like whatever they're doing with Microsoft, we'll try to help them go quicker. And so again, for you, I think you can all sort of think about that. What can I do to go quicker? Can I have a hackathon to break out of the thinking that we've been stuck in for a while? And that's what a lot of people do, is they sort of use that opportunity to just approach something very, very differently than they would normally, like during the course of like all their meetings, that they would have normally. So that's a great use of hackathons. We also build tools. Like we built a website. We had a global hackathon. This is how different Microsoft is. And it might be like a little hard to imagine this, but pretend that you worked for Microsoft, like huge 100,000 person company all around the world. There's a new CEO, and one of the very first things he says is, I want everybody to stop what they're doing. For 2 days, stop what you're doing. Start a project or join a project. Go hack. And this was for everybody. This is for non-technical people, right? This is for like finance and marketing and salespeople, like people who've never written a line of code in their life. And so everybody in the whole company stopped and either started a project or joined a project and just had the best time. I can't tell you how many people were like, in tears because they were so happy they finally got a chance to feel what it felt like to be a developer, right? To be somebody in a startup, because that's not their job. But they finally got to do that. And once they got a taste of that, they started to come around and they're like, well, how can I do this more? Or maybe I can start my own projects. So we did it again. We did it again the next year, and it got even bigger. And all of a sudden, we had an opportunity to create a website. And we had made a website called garage.microsoft.com. And on this website, we showcase individual teams' projects or individual people's projects. And these are things that are not, full-blown, huge Microsoft projects. They're little tiny things, very specialized. Some of them are, I have to tell you, most of them are even not for Windows. The majority of the things that come out through the Garage website are for iOS or Android, or they're open-sourced maker recipes. Right? They've got nothing to do with Microsoft's traditional business, but we know now that this is the most important way forward for us, is sort of helping the small projects move forward, right? Learning things. The teams who come to us, like this is a group of our interns in Boston that we get, college interns come in. The interns get to like make something all by themselves and ship it, and then go back to school. Like, what an amazing experience. Instead of working on a little tiny piece of some gigantic machinery, they're doing the whole thing end to end themselves. So that's great for them, it's great for us. It helps us learn. And so the whole point of the Garage and the Garage program is to do these small projects and do them as experiments, right? Just have somebody has a hypothesis, they release it off into the world. We use telemetry and data, right? Because we're using data quite a bit to figure out, are people using it, are they not liking it? And we learn, and then we iterate or we stop doing it. Because it's not worthwhile, right? Perhaps. So that's been a fantastic experience for everybody. And so now.